On November 11th, 1918, over a whole century ago, the Great War had come to an end. However, peace would not yet come. The 5 treaties drafted by the victorious Allied powers were largely enforced with further wars and conflicts. One of the treaties, in fact, the Treaty of Sèvres, which dealt with the Ottoman Empire, went unsigned with victory of the Turks in the Turkish War of Independence. Ultimately, it was revised as the Treaty of Lausanne. The post-World War I conflicts were not completely resolved until 1923. Worst of all, though, the peace treaties of World War I did not bring everlasting peace. But well, if anything, world peace was never really the true intention of their creators. Rather, instead, they were acts of nationalistic vengeance, imperialism, and hypocrisy. In response to Germany's cruel treatment of Belgium, known as the Rape of Belgium, the region of Ypres-Normandy was ceded to Belgium, despite it being almost completely German. The Belgian government even took it one step further by trying to convince its own people that the area was actually Belgian. This is just one example of people being split from their homeland because of another's territorial ambitions. But out of all of the hypocritical actions taken by the Allies, none were worse than those by France. After Germany began to stop paying the reparations that had been enforced upon it, France and Belgium occupied the Ruhr to essentially extract it themselves. Some Germans, obviously, peacefully protested this occupation. But in response, over the course of the entire occupation, French forces ultimately killed 130 Germans. France and Belgium finally left the Ruhr in 1925, after pressure from Britain and the US. But ultimately, France sought to break Germany up into a number of states, deny them an army, and overall destroy the nation to the point that it would never again be able to threaten France. Plus, France had even wanted to leave Germany with an unpayable amount of reparations. Ultimately, though, Germany was only made to pay 2.25 billion marks, equivalent to around $130 billion in today's money. Even so, Germany didn't completely finish paying those reparations until just recently in 2010. Now obviously, France's grievances were of course not completely unwarranted. I mean, Germany did commit quite a few atrocities in Belgium and France and reduce much of their territory to rubble. But France and Belgium's acts of vengeance made them no better than Germany. All of this goes to show that there really were no good guys in World War I. Only really the US and maybe Britain could be considered good. Anyone else would have just been civilians caught in the crossfire with the nation's militaries, forced to fight in wars created by and for their leaders. President Woodrow Wilson tried his hardest to establish the League of Nations and bring about world peace. But most other Allied powers would have none of it. And even though the League of Nations was established, it did little without the US, which was blocked from joining by Congress. Yes, the Central Powers committed violent acts, most notably the Armenian and Greek genocides by the Ottomans. But the Allies did as well, such as the deaths of 130 Germans by the French forces in the Ruhr that I mentioned above. When the Allies drafted the peace treaties, instead of thinking of the civilians of the Central Powers and their innocence, or their own civilians for that matter, they cared more about their own ambitions of imperialism and revenge. French General Ferdinand Foch is famously quoted as saying, "This is not a peace. This is an armistice for 20 years. He had said this in his belief that the Treaty of Versailles was too lenient on Germany. But while his words proved true, the Second World War occurred because of its harshness, not leniency. War benefits no one. It certainly doesn't benefit the common man, They're the ones who have to fight in the war for their country. And ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, most of them will practically be considered expendable. Just objects that can be used over and over again without regard. No selective use of history can justify atrocities. The peace treaties of World War I did not bring peace, but rather set the stage for what would ultimately become the deadliest conflict in human history.